share with you the case of Diane King. This is a solved case. I know some of you really like the solved ones, so I decided it was time to share one. 34-year-old Diane was a news anchor at WUHQ TV station in Battle Creek, Michigan. In addition to being a star reporter, Diane's striking good looks and her dynamic personality made her a local celebrity in her hometown of Marshall, Michigan. Diane's personal life seemed just as idyllic as her professional one. She was married to a man named Brad King. He was her husband of 4 years at the time of this case, and the couple had 2 beautiful children, ages 3 and just 3 months. Diane was the type of woman that really lived life to the fullest, and she had big plans for her future. When she wasn't working or caring for her children, she volunteered at the soup kitchen, and she worked to aid disadvantaged children. She was also a proud member of the Mohawk Nation, and she dreamed of making documentaries about Native Americans one day. Now, Diane, as a public figure, had no shortage of admirers, but one obsessed fan wasn't content to simply express their admiration for her. No, this person was absolutely desperate to meet with her, and they started calling the news station every day, begging Diane to meet them for lunch. The station really tried to look out for her. They beefed up the building's security. Diane's husband, a former police officer, installed security lights around their house, and the calls eventually stopped, only to be replaced by something that I found far creepier. "You should have gone to lunch with me." This sentence was scrawled out on a piece of paper, the sender having cut the letters out from newspapers and magazines, serial killer style. Equally disturbing was the fact that this letter had been placed in Diane's mailbox at home, so whoever made it and sent it knew exactly where she and her family lived. The local police were pretty stumped as to who would send such an ominous note and in such a unique format. A forensic analyst explained that, except for really in movies or TV, people in real life rarely went to the lengths of cutting out each individual letter, pasting it, and sending it on a note. So, a few weeks after the letter incident, someone broke into Diane's house. Now, nothing was stolen, so the police eventually moved on to investigating other crimes. Meanwhile, poor Diane continued to live on, afraid. On February 9th, 1991, Diane pulled into her driveway with her kids in the car. As she stepped out of her car, a bullet came out of nowhere and shot her once in the heart. As Diane lay on the driveway, the killer came up to her, crouched near her, and shot her a second time. This time in her pelvis, and then they vanished without a trace. Her husband Brad was the first one on the scene, and he immediately called police before taking his frightened children away. Investigators determined that Diane had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle. After combing Diane and Brad's property, they found a single bullet casing in the barn's hayloft next to the driveway. Now, of course, the obvious suspect in all this is this person that has been harassing Diane and sending that threatening letter and breaking into the house. Unfortunately, the letter had been extremely mishandled by the local police, and the FBI Darius also found 7 spent cartridges in the water. And still, Travis the dog was not done. He then jumped into the stream, ran into the woods, out onto the street, and right back to the King's home. There was a large crowd still gathered at the crime scene, and Diane's killer appeared to be among them. When police began closely examining Brad and Diane's marriage, they saw that their seemingly perfect union was anything but. Where Diane was highly driven and extremely hardworking, Brad seemed quite content to mooch off his successful wife. He had previously been a cop, as I mentioned, but he now taught criminal justice part-time at Western Michigan University. Where Diane was a caring mother and wife, Brad appeared to be an immature man-child, basically. Despite the fact that he was 44 years old, he hung out at fraternity parties and cheated on Diane. There are at least 2 students that admitted to this, so he's a teacher at a college cheating on his wife with his students. Ew. Diane's sister told police that Diane was really tired of supporting her deadbeat husband, and she had decided she wanted a divorce. Apparently, Diane had gone as far as to freeze their joint checking account. She also told some friends and colleagues that Brad could be physically abusive during their heated arguments. At Diane's funeral, Diane's mother provided another piece of important information. She told the police that Diane had planned to drop off the kids at her house on the weekend of her death, so that she and Brad could spend the weekend alone. Diane had changed her plans at the last minute because one of her kiddos had gotten sick. So, when you think about it, Brad is clearly the killer, right? Motive, check. Brad really liked his comfortable lifestyle, couldn't bear the thought of having to get a full-time job, and then pay child support for his 2 kids. No alibi. Check. Brad claimed he'd been walking in the woods at the time of the murder. In fact, he was walking the exact trail that Travis the dog had detected as the killer's escape route. Murder weapon. Check. 7 witnesses testified that Brad owned a .22 caliber rifle. No, Travis the dog did not own a rifle. Now, despite the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, did Brad really kill the mother of his children right in front of them? Police theorized that Brad had anticipated Diane would be alone that day because she was supposed to drop off the kids with her grandparents. When he realized that his kids were in the car, he had to improvise. He ran off and then arrived at the scene quickly so he could call the police and save his kids from the freezing cold February weather. Prosecutors were convinced that Brad was Diane's killer, but they feared that his defense would be able to plant reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. And they were right to be worried. With Brad's background in law enforcement and criminal justice, Brad arrogantly thought he was smarter than the police, believing he had committed the perfect crime. And really, he almost did. Police could not positively identify the bullets at the crime scene with the rifle because the shells were so severely deformed. Additionally, a neighbor magically discovered another .22 caliber rifle in his attic, likely planted by good old Brad. But, as in the case with so many criminals, Brad made some rookie mistakes. The first one being he dropped a bullet casing in the hayloft that helped Travis the dog pick up his scent. As for the mysterious burglar who broke into their home, sentenced to life in prison without parole. Now, being the brilliant journalist that she was, Diane had suspected that her husband was behind the crank calls in the letter. She had confided in her friend that she wasn't sure what she was going to do about it yet, but she never got the chance to decide, as Brad cruelly made that decision for her. The fact that Brad shot the mother of his children, not just once, but twice, really shows the sheer rage and hatred he felt toward her. All Diane wanted was a partner who would pull their weight so that she could take a step back from work and spend more time with her two small children. Diane's sister's victim impact statement was particularly heartbreaking. She described her nightmares of seeing Diane lying dead on the driveway with only the sounds of her crying children to be heard, which absolutely broke my heart. After her death, Diane's children were raised by their maternal grandparents, and today they are young adults who still live in Michigan. As far as I read, they both take after Diane physically, and I hope that they also inherited their mother's passion, integrity, and fierce love of family. So, I think we have to talk about what we always talk about in cases like this. Get a divorce. I don't know how many times I have covered cases where I'm researching it and I'm like, why the heck didn't they just get a divorce? But really, I could kind of see how Brad didn't think that way. You know, if he's this 44-year-old man-child going to frat parties and hanging out with kids and cheating on Diane whenever he wanted, it's, pretty sensible to think that maybe he wasn't thinking in the most adult-like ways. I don't know if he was just going through a midlife crisis and that's why he was doing all this frat party stuff. I think that sleeping with your students is pretty yucky. But, it seemed like they consented, so I guess I can't really get him on that. I don't know. I think this just sucks. I understand that he thought she would be alone, but can you imagine how much that traumatized their 3-year-old at the time? First of all, the loud noises. He shot their mother right outside the car. You have to think that the car door was probably open for her to get the children out of the car. And then he, mysteriously just shows up and whisks them away, and then it comes back to the crime scene. That is just bizarre. I understand that he may have struck her without realizing that they were there, but it is completely inexcusable to me that he committed this crime in the first place. And I have to wonder why we don't cover more cases here on GeekWaresASMR where tracking dogs are featured. There are a lot of cases that don't even mention tracking dogs, but I really think Travis the dog was pretty crucial in this case to identifying Brad as the killer, because he found the senseless tragedy. I can only imagine the stigma that surrounds you when something like that happens to you. Granted, they were 3 and 3 months, so they probably don't remember any of it, thank goodness. But I cannot imagine growing up without my mom and then potentially knowing that my dad killed my mom. I have to wonder if they have any type of relationship with him. As far as I can tell, he is still alive and living in prison. But I don't know that I would have had any type of relationship with my dad if he had committed such a crime. I'm curious to know what you guys think about this case. Have you heard of it? Do you know anything about it that I didn't cover? I love it when people tell me, oh, this happened in my hometown and you forgot this, and this, because sometimes those things aren't reported on and I can't get that side of the story unless I come across someone who was actually there and has those details for me. Anyway, I would like to know what type of case you would like to see for next week's video. I have a couple missing persons that I could cover. I have one really long video. I have two really long videos that I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to film without too much editing. It's very, very hard to do. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here today. Sean did say he owes you 2 videos. He has one of them filmed and he just didn't upload it, and then he has plans for another one, so you might see some extra content here on the channel this week. I know last week I mentioned the new history series that I'm starting on. I'm gonna do the Titanic ones in April because that is when that tragedy happened. But like I said, I have 3 videos for that. I don't know if I'll smush them into one to make one long video, or if I'll do 3 separate videos for extra videos during the week. So I'd like to know what you would like to see, because it really is 3 separate topics about the same topic, if that makes sense. But I've noticed that the sequel videos or the part 2 videos don't get as much views, so it's kind of like people are like, man, I'm done listening. So I don't know. I'll have to see how it goes. If the first one's really short, maybe I'll smash 2 of them together or whatever. I think that's it. I'm gonna stop rambling now, and I will see you guys next week for another